I just played Pokemon Red for the very first time, and I'm here with DreamcastGuy, who's played it a multitudes of different times, and we're gonna argue about does it still hold up, or does it not? So, do you think it holds up by today's standards?
I think Gen 1 doesn't as well. I love Pokemon Red a lot, especially original, not even Fire Red. Original Red I have a big soft spot for. Yeah. I actually replayed it last week.
Shit.
But I definitely think they kind of hit their stride in Gen 2. But I'm kind of curious to you, how much did you play of it, and what did you think of it?
So I like almost beat it. I'm almost there, but I actually really liked it. I think what's interesting about Pokemon is that it's like stayed the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, other than some quality of life features, like some small little Pokemon appearing in the overworld, it's essentially the same game. Like, even this, the Scarlet and Violet, like, you can see how very little Pokemon has evolved over the years. And so I think because I've been conditioned to like those older games, like from the DS era, which is when I grew up, I was like, okay, this is still kind of a banger because, like, you know, it's not that different.
I think something I have a soft spot for, and I'm a total boomer, so this is definitely like an old man mind, but I liked when I was growing up playing it, the fact that you could look at a Pokemon and always tell what their type was. Whereas, like, as the generations have gone on, I've kind of fallen off on Pokemon. Like, I still like the games and I can still appreciate them, but now that there's like refrigerators and like there's like weird ones that are
the
like
key one.
Yeah, or like a flying psychic one, or the guy who's like two ice cream scoops. I think I have the problem that when I look at something, I can't tell what their elemental weakness should be.
Right.
Whereas I do like in the original game, I know that now the newer Pokemons have that thing where it'll tell you when you look like, hey, this ability will be effective.
Yeah.
But I liked in the original games, I would look at a guy who is just a freaking ice cube and go, oh yeah, that guy needs to get burned.
Yeah, burned, yeah. Well, and I think it's cool because they're like colored in a certain way that like allows them to be like Charmander, you know that's a fire Pokemon. And then Squirtle, you know that's a water Pokemon because of the blue and the red. And so I think just they really smartly colored everything. But these Pokemon have pretty much, they've gone on for all these generations and stuff. Do you think this is like the best lineup of Pokemon, you'd say? Or like at least a solid start?
Well, so yeah, I guess that's actually such a good question because, I think I appreciate Gen 2 and Gen 3 a lot. I think they are better games, but I guess, that's such a great point in that I do think I like the original 150 the most. Yeah. Just because it's like, here's the mushroom one, here's a fire pony, okay, here's Zapdos, which is a big electric bird. There's zero filler. Like, some people, maybe somebody would say Porygon, because Porygon is a little bit weird, but I don't know. I like that the original 151 are so locked in. I like that.
No, and I think they've gone on, like, people freak out if they're not in the newer games, So, like, they're pretty iconic for a reason, and it's interesting because I've played all these older games, and you see, like, how far the series has come, and it's funny with Pokemon because you're like, damn, these are, like, sort of still the best Pokemon, sort of still the exact same gameplay loop, like, it just hasn't changed. And so I think it's funny because in these videos I'm usually like completely at odds. Like say we talk about like Super Metroid or something. You'd be like, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know about Super Metroid. But here it's like it's still kind of a banger because
I think I want to watch, like, I'm curious your thoughts on Red. I'm glad we're talking about Red, but I'm almost curious if you end up going on to do Next Gen and playing Crystal specifically, because they've been very open about this to Pokemon devs playing the first, like, 250 Pokemon, pretty much, and then they finished 150, so that's why we got the 150. But a lot of people consider, like, Pokemon Crystal to be, like, the real version of Pokemon Red and stuff.
Okay.
And when you play, that's why you do Johto and go back to Kanto and stuff. And I think when you play Crystal especially because it's really balanced and they added in animations to all the Pokemon and stuff.
That's cool.
I think I'm super curious to see your thoughts because it even improves and balances out and makes special stats so that Psychic isn't quite so overpowered. Like, even just getting Mewtwo and stuff. I feel like Crystal is what Red was trying to do. And I still love Red and Blue a lot, but man, it's like Crystal is like the vision finished.
Okay, I get you. Yeah, no, I need to go back and play some of the older ones. Like I really started with Diamond and Pearl on the DS.
That's when I stopped.
Okay, yeah, I see. So I played those, but I was a kid, so I don't super remember them, but I remember liking them. And then I grew up with the Pokemon anime, just because my brother liked it. And so, also, like, the gym leaders in here are pretty iconic.
Yes, yeah. Like, and I also, again, I like the fact that everybody looks like their type. Like, oh, here's the fighting gym. It's optional, but it's got a bunch of like dude bros there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, here's Brock. Brock loves rocks. Okay, cool. Like, I don't know. Especially my favorite back in the day as a kid, I always thought Fuga's Ninja Gym that has the invisible walls was like so
insane.
Crazy to me. Where I'm like, oh, this is a puzzle, and then you get there and there's like a ninja master who has really underleveled Pokemon. It's like, whoa, it's so cool. I'm gonna pound you now.
Yeah. Well, the balancing in this game is weird too, because like I feel like there's a little bit of a grind at the beginning, and then it just stops, and you're just you just wipe them. Yeah.
Well, and the whole weird thing of like badges are supposed to make it so Pokemon obey you, but your Pokemon that only affects traded Pokemon, and they never say that in the game. So I remember like as a kid over leveling like crazy, and I kept being like, these Pokemon are still obeying me. It only says they'll obey me up to level 25. You can just break it. Especially, I used to get Pokemon Stadium because you could put the card pack in there and play it at triple speed. They call it Dodrio mode.
Whoa.
And I used to beat the game in like 4 hours. I'd get a Charmander and I'd power level it. And once you blasted past Brock with just raw fucking Ember Spam, you could get through the entire game. You could melt everything. Yeah. And it's just so weird. Like, why do I have a Charizard on the third gym? It's just like...
Yeah, Charmander is the most he's the most OP starter for sure. I picked him because I was like, I need this to be kind of like a thing I can get through in a timely manner. But then I also started a second playthrough, and I tried to play a little bit of Squirtle, and it's such a different experience.
Oh yeah,
because like you kind of get whomped by the wild Pokemon at first with Squirtle.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what the hell is happening? I was like destroying them as Charmanders. I think the balancing in this game is kind of interesting.
It feels like it's not quite beta tested.
No.
But before this came out, before Pokemon came out back in the day, there was this article written from this guy who flew to Japan to visit Nintendo, and they gave him like the first translated, fully done copy of Pocket Monsters, and he flew back with it, and he didn't even play it on the plane, and he just had it on his desk for like a month, and he finally decided to start playing it, like, oh, here's this game, Pocket Monsters, and he starts playing it, and he wrote this article about like being the first American just hopelessly addicted to this game. And I sometimes think about that because I'm like, man, Red really did that. Like every person who played Pokemon Red back in the day became a Pokemaniac. Like it just if you played it, if you got past the first gym, you were just that guy.
Right. It's really captivating. Like even playing it now where I I don't really have the nostalgia for it. I do have a little bit of nostalgia for Pokemon because I grew up with it, but at the same time it's like my version was never Red. But even going back, I'm like, I can totally understand why this was such a huge deal back in the day. And with a lot of games, like, I'm gonna say Super Metroid again, people are gonna hate me for this, but like...
The worst game, Super Metroid.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the worst, but like, people love it.
Oh yeah.
But then it's like, you go back to it, and I went back to it, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a banger. And then I played it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like, this is painful. And I think it's interesting, because Pokemon... It might have to do a little bit with difficulty as well. It's like Pokemon was never that game that like pushed you too much, you know?
It will never grind your face in the dirt.
No.
It's like, yeah, figure it out, you beat it.
Yeah, and I think that's really nice because back in the day here, like they were so ridiculously difficult. I mean, you had Ghosts and Goblins, you had like some crazy shit back in the day, and like at least everybody's like games are easier nowadays, but like. It's nice because Pokemon is still pretty much the same difficulty level all the way through. Like, it hasn't really gotten harder. It hasn't really gotten easier. It's just that same exact middle ground. And I think that...
the thing I always respected the most from, like, a, like, meta medium sense is the fact that, like, I grew up watching a lot of the Pokemon anime. And then I grew up watching a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime doesn't teach you how to play the card game. They just make stuff up every freaking episode. It's like, dang, I got 4 time wizards, blah. Doesn't make any freaking sense. Okay. Whereas when you watched Pokemon, they would show you, all right, the Pokemon is weakened. We can now capture it. Right. Okay, let's go to the gym. They explained all the gym leaders and order stuff.
Yeah.
So it was such an interesting onboarding process. But then you could also do the opposite, where Pokemon was just so accessible. You could beat it and have fun and then watch the anime. That was so interesting that, like, I've never seen anything else that has such a cyclical nature where you can jump into the medium at any point and immediately pick it up. And I feel like Red just nailed that right at the start.
Yeah. No, it's been so perfect that Pokemon hasn't changed it at all.
Yeah, they're like, we're good.
No, we're good. No, we're touching it again. Yeah, exactly. And then, like, what is, like, this was one of your first RPGs, is that what you said? Or, like, one of your main ones?
I'm trying to think. It has to be one of the very first. Yeah, but I remember...
Did you play it as a kid?
I played it when it came out, pretty much. Well, so what's really weird is that before I had a copy of Pokemon, I had a friend who actually spilled a soda on an instruction manual for Pokemon Red. So he gave it to me, or not an instruction manual, a strategy guide. So I spent like 2 months memorizing the entire strategy guide, and it was just slowly falling apart because it was just so crusted. And I just keep reading it until it just dissolved.
Jesus.
And I memorized it, so I knew where all the hidden items were. On the SSN, you can get the secret thing from the trash can and all that. So when I got the game, I was already the Pokemon master. So kids would come to me on the playground and ask, where do I get this Pokemon, or where do I catch it and stuff? So I liked that, and it really kind of got me in, like, because I'd watched it when I was playing it. The day it came out, I remember this kid brought it, and he had a brick Game Boy, and he brought it, and he sat on the playground, and there was a crowd of kids around him. Like, legitimately, nobody had seen anything like this. I think I'd seen Final Fantasy, like, a neighbor kid playing Final Fantasy, and it made no sense. Like the old original ones where there's just, I literally watched for 5 minutes, it's just all text boxes. I was like, what the hell is happening? And then it's like, here's Pokemon, my pocket monster, go Charizard. Like,
holy shit,
instantly addicted.
Okay. With me it was like, I think it's interesting though that Pokemon has like again, it just stayed the same, because when I was a kid, you know, I had a friend who had a Game Boy SP when I was like in kindergarten, and I remember he would play this, I don't know what Pokemon it was, but he would always play this Pokemon game, and literally the whole class would like watch him do this. And it's interesting how that's like gone on for decades, you know? And I'm sure it still happens with like the Switch and stuff. It's interesting.
Man, I think that was still one of my favorite memories was back then was the trading Pokemon and battling Pokemon. We looked up the league rules when it used to be 3 Pokemon, 50 to 55, with a total levels could only be 155. So you could have like 2 52s and a 53 or whatever the heck. And we obeyed those rules, and we used to just make like a Gyarados that knew Thunder and giving Ice Beam to like Dragonite because it had super high defense. And we used to have our own Pokemon tournaments. And it was just, it absorbed our lives. And it's like, man, I just can't think of like a game that managed to just immediately come out there and just take over. Like Pokemania was so insane. And it's cool that it still works. Like it's cool that you can play it as a much younger person. You're like, oh yeah, it still totally works.
Yeah, and it's shocking, really, because like most Game Boy games, you know, they don't hold up great, and even with like the graphics, it's like kind of hard to imagine what they were going for sometimes. You know, you're like,
look at the instruction manual.
You're like, what is this supposed to be? But with Pokemon, you like look at it and you're like, the sprites are like super impressive.
Oh yeah,
honestly, like when I was playing this game, it felt like it didn't feel like it was in the same league as something like even like the original Super Mario Land. You know, it's just so different.
I'm super into, like, I'll pull out my wallet. I'm super obsessed with Game Boy games. I actually collect Game Boy constantly. I play Game Boy stuff. And I can definitely say it's very bizarre when you're playing through huge swaths of the Game Boy library because Pokemon is just from a different planet. Like, I love these games and I have a deep appreciation for them. But then when you play Pokemon, it's just something bigger and longer and deeper and funner and more beautiful with cooler music. And it's like... So, like, you almost have to stop playing the Pokemon. You gotta, like, let your brain wipe and then go, all right, now let's play through some Golden Sun, and now let's play some Metroid Fusion. All right, now let's do another Pokemon.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm, like, kind of very shocked with it, too, because I went into it, I was like, this is gonna be a Game Boy game. It's gonna be something that I'll be like, hey, I understand why you guys like it, but it's not for me, like a lot of the games are. But... it was just, like, as I was playing through it, I was telling my boyfriend, I was like, what the hell, this is kind of fun, like, and then he played it a little bit, and he's not into video games nearly as much as I am, but he was like, oh, this is just like the OG Pokemon, like, this is just like the one I played as a kid, which is funny, because even, like, us, we're like, oh, we played this original Pokemon, we didn't, but it's, like, the exact same feeling, it's funny.
Yeah. It's just, it almost feels like a demake, the fact that you could take any generations, and it's like, yeah, it's the same DNA.
Yeah.
At some point, you should look into the Pokemon hacks.
Oh yeah, no, I've played you know the one from Team Rocket's perspective.
Yes, oh my gosh,
that's my favorite one.
It's so funny.
Yes,
they cuss so much.
It's so good.
Like, why is there so much cussing in a Pokemon?
It's so good.
I bought that I flew somewhere. And somebody had, like, printed one. I was at a convention, and I saw it. I'm like, Team Rocket, and I had a Game Boy. I bought a Game Boy there, and I bought that cartridge, and I was playing it at the airport without, like, a strategy guide or anything, and there's just people dropping F-bombs.
Yeah, and you, like, steal other people's Pokemon. Yeah. It's such a banger. I honestly wish that actual Pokemon would take that and be like, this is the new version of Pokemon.
I literally was like playing it, like looking around, like I'm gonna get in trouble. Like Nintendo's just gonna walk up and smack this out of my hand. Like you can't do that.
I know when I was playing it on my emulator, I was like, are they gonna like hack and see where I am and like come get? I don't know. It was crazy. But I honestly, stuff like this, like going back and playing it, it's really cool. But it also makes me wish that they would evolve it so badly.
Right, yeah.
Because it's like, you know, it's like the exact same, which is cool in a way that it's worked for so long.
Yeah.
But it's also like, good things can change. Like Zelda did Breath of the Wild and stuff like that, you know? So it's interesting.
Well, and that's what, from the fan base, I know that some people, I've heard the Pokemon fans make fun of people like me. They call us Gen 1ers. We're like, I just want you to capture that essence of Gen 1 again.
Yeah.
But I have always said, like, man, I would love to see them just do like a big 3D, something Breath of the Wild-ish. With Gen 1.
Yes. No, I think it'd be fantastic.
Take us back to Kanto, 150 Pokemon, finite balls, trainers line of sight attack you and stuff. I don't know. Like, but with a more active system where instead of just turn-based, like actually have it where I'm trying to dodge moves and stuff. Give them a mana bar. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and like Arceus sort of did that. I mean, it stepped in the right direction.
Oh, yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see how they could do that with Gen 1. Because, like, that also wouldn't be pushing as far, I think, as this one did, you know? So, I don't know. I'd like to see maybe it evolve a little bit, but I was also very pleasantly surprised.
Arceus, I think, is the biggest leap.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it gives me hope, and that's why when whatever Scarlet and Violet came out and were just so glitchy, and are still so glitchy, the DLC came out, I've seen pictures. It's like at 12 frames a second. I keep seeing Twitter videos. I'm like, man, Arceus seems like the real next gen.
Right. Well, and it's crazy because I feel like they stretched themselves so thin. It's like they developed Arceus and put it out January, and then the end of the year they put out Scarlet and Violet. It's like, why did you need to do that? Just give me one game.
Well, and then they're doing Scarlet Violet DLC. Sorry, now we're talking about the nature of Pokemon instead of Pokemon Red. Play Pokemon Red. Don't play Scarlet and Violet.
Yes, that's the moral. But I like the characters in Pokemon Red. Like, I was very pleasantly surprised. One little gripe I had is the way you start the game. Because, you know, it's like, go talk to Professor Oak. So you go automatically, you're like, cool, there's one other place in this entire thing, except for, like, our rival's house. So you go into it, and he's not there. And it's like, what are you supposed to do? And then I, like, ran around the town for a while, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go. And then it triggers it. I'm like, that's so weird. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's sometimes some of those old games have this weird, like, assumed
mistakes that they want you to make before you can actually progress. And it's weird.
My biggest gripe, which thankfully Pokemon doesn't do, a lot of those old games that do where you have to fail, like a boss fight, you have to lose, and you don't know, so you use like 18 potions. That's the oldest game trope that drives me nuts.
Yeah. That's why I don't play most like RPGs from the olden days, because I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do? I don't know, it just kind of drives me a little bit crazy, but it's interesting, like, how, I'm honestly just blown away by the fact that I thought it was as good as it was, because
I'm very happy.
I was not thinking, like, what did you think I was going to come into here like?
I thought you would say that you respected and appreciated it from a distance, because I really like it a lot, and but I can't take my nostalgia goggles off. I see it as an 8-year-old forever. I love it that much, so I'm actually very happy that you can come into it and see it the way that you, as a kid, were playing Pokemon. That's so cool to me.
Yeah, no, I think, again, it's just because it, like, didn't really evolve. It just kind of, like, got a new coat of paint. DreamcastGuy, thank you for joining. This was very fun. Where can they find you? I'm sure they're already subscribed.
YouTube.com/DreamcastGuy. Sorry, my camera records for exactly 20 minutes. I apologize that we're just having a great rap. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yes.
Like, maybe we'll do some sort of video call thing at some point.
Yeah, that sounds like a vibe.
If you ever do Golden Sun.
Okay. Down. Okay, thanks for watching. Check out this video. It's a banger. It's a vibe. It's a good time. See you there. Bye.